In this video, we are going to review how to multiply radicals. So we're going to start here in the top left with the square root of 12 times the square root of 3. So there's two different ways I can do this. I can factor the values first, or I can multiply them together first. And I'm going to show both ways. So I'm going to start by factoring the square root of 12. I know that this would be equal to the square root of 4 times the square root of 3. And I'm going to bring down this square root of 3. So the square root of 4 is 2. And the square root of 3 times the square root of 3 is just 3. Now I'm going to multiply those two together, and I get 6. So I could have also multiplied the 12 and the 3 before factoring and get the square root of 36. Well, this was a lot easier, and that is equal to 6. It doesn't really matter which one you choose. Sometimes one will work better, sometimes the other one will. So it's really with what you prefer. In this next example here, we have not just a radicand, but we have a value in front of it too. And if you ever get confused about what to do with these radicals, you can kind of think about the same rules that you have for variable expressions, because a lot of the rules that you have there are going to carry over with the radicals. So what does that mean? In this example, we are going to multiply the beginning values first. So negative 3 times 3 is negative 9. And then we're going to have the square root of 6 times the square root of 2. Now, if you're like, what do I multiply together? You could think of it as like this negative 3 and x times 3 and y. So like when we're multiplying this, we know that we multiply the coefficients together, and then we would multiply these two values together. So come back to that if you forget, like, what values am I multiplying with which? Bring it back to what you know about variables. So coming back to these radicals now, we have this negative 9 and the square root of 6 and the square root of 2. The square root of 6 I can say is 3 times 2. Bring this 2 down. I'm going to simplify where I can. The square root of 2 and 2 is 2. Negative 9, square root of 3. I can combine the negative 9 times 2, negative 18. Bring down our square root of 3, and there we go. So go ahead and pause the video and give these two questions a try. You should have gotten these answers as your result. And for the first one, square root of 8 times the square root of 10, I did it two different ways, choosing different numbers here and here, and you can see that I got the same answer either way. Whatever numbers you choose, you should still get the right answer if you follow this process. So now what happens if I have a problem like this, where I have a binomial times a binomial? We'll keep bringing it back to that knowledge you have about variables and polynomials, because again, a lot of the same rules and strategies you use there will help you here. So when I'm multiplying binomials, I like to multiply with a area model, and I will also show how to do it with distribution. So I'm going to go ahead and write my first factor on one side and my second factor on the other. And I am going to go ahead and multiply and find what goes on the inside. So here I'm going to have 5 times the square root of 5 square roots of 3 times the square root of 3. And I'm going to write it all out so it makes sense what I'm doing. I have 5 times this 1, this invisible 1 there, which is 5. The square root of 3 times the square root of 3 is 3. So this is 15. Then I'm going to have negative 1 times the square root of 3, which is negative root 3. I'll have negative 3 times 5 roots of 3. So that's negative 3 times 5, negative 15. Bring that root 3 over. And then finally, I'll have negative 3 times negative 1, which is 3. Write out all of my values here. So I have positive 15 and 3, negative 15 root 3 minus a root 3. Combine my like terms. So negative 15 and minus this invisible 1 right here is negative 16 root 3 as my result. I could do the same thing with distribution. Where I would do square root of 3 times 5 root 3, the square root of 3 times negative 1, negative 3 times 5 root 3, and negative 3 times negative 1. You'll see I did all of that work here. It's just a different way of organizing it, but you'll still get to that same final answer.